Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Office Hours Politics Edition. I am your host, Ziana Aly, and Office Hours are in session. We are talking about something that no one really talks about, but I think about a lot. We hear this constantly in politics. We acknowledge the harm. We apologize for the past. We are committed to moving forward. Apologies are everywhere right now. Governments apologize for colonialism. Churches apologize for abuse. Corporations apologize for exploitation. Politicians apologize for scandals, sometimes while they're still doing it. And we're told that these apologies are all healing and necessary and evident of progress. But today, we're asking a harder question. What if apologies are not about accountability, but about containment? What if apologies function less as justice and more in a way to close debate, neutralize anger, and avoid material responsibility? This episode argues in one central thesis. In liberal politics, apologies are often used to preserve power, not to challenge it. Now let's start with the ideal version. In theory, an apology, I feel like I sound like a therapist right now. Take notes, government. In theory, an apology does four things: acknowledges the harm, takes responsibility, commits to repair, and changes future behavior. But here's the problem. Most political apologies stop at step one. One and done, one hit wonder. Most politicians, most apologies acknowledge harm without reparations, structural change, accountability. Political theorists call this symbolic politics. Legitimacy in modern states often come from communication, not outcomes. Meaning, if the state sounds moral, it can avoid being that. Now, apologies are a tool of liberal power. Duh. Liberal states love apologies because apologies individualize harm, depoliticize violence, turn systematic injustice into historical error. An apology reframes violence as something just happened, something that happened, not something that continues. Political philosopher Hannah Arendt warned that modern power doesn't rely on brute force alone. It relies on narrative control. I feel like I literally talk about her every single episode. I'm obsessed. Apologies are narrative tools. They say, we've learned, we've moved on, the chapter is closed, even when the structure remains intact. Let's talk about Canada, our home and native land. This is the country that comes to mind, and I hope it was all on your mind as well. Canada is the gold standard for apologies. Residential schools, the 60s scoop, Chinese head tax, Japanese internment. Canada apologizes eloquently. Under Stephen Harper and then later Justin Trudeau, apologies became central to national identity. Do you understand how deep that is? I'm getting way too passionate. I need to calm down. Anyways, here's the contradiction. Canada apologizes for Indigenous genocide while continuing settler colonialism. Strange. Land is not returned. Pipelines continue. Water advisories persist. Land defenders are criminalized. Recognition without redistribution is colonialism with a smile. Apologies become a substitute for decolonization. And we hear this from politician after politician after politician. Mark Carney, in his debate, when he was questioned about, oh my God, the thing he wants to build for the oil. This is so embarrassing. This was just a random tangent, okay? I didn't think about this too much. But yeah, and he was like, my God, we're literally going to get all the Indigenous people on board. They're going to be there. They're going to be consenting. They're going to be in the room with us. And none of that happened. And guess what? They're still building it. Are you shocked? I'm not. Are you shocked? I don't think anyone's shocked. Anyways, that's a whole conversation about how wrong that is. Story for another day. Let's get back on track. Anyways, one of the most dangerous things apologies do, these apologies, is create false closure. Once an apology is issued, the expectation becomes forgive, move on, stop bringing it up. Anger becomes framed as excessive, unproductive, decisive. This is especially true for marginalized communities. As Frantz Fanon wrote, colonial power fears memory more than violence. Apologies are designed to manage your memory, not honor it. Now we can move on to corporate apologies. They're the worst. Oil spills, corporate data breaches, environmental destruction, sweatshops. Corporations apologize constantly, but notice, profits remain, CEOs stay, business continues. Political economist Carl Polanyi, oh my God, sorry, like Carl Polanyi, like Karl Marx, like they're honestly like trigger words for me because I hear about them in like every single class. Like, damn, imagine being that up that like kids are hearing about you in literally every single lecture. Anyways, he explains that capitalism externalizes harm and internalizes profits. Apologies are part of that externalization. They absorb outrage without altering accumulation. Now, political apologies often involve one resignation, one statement, one bad apple, but then the system survives. And this is what sociologists call sacrificial accountability. Someone falls so the institution doesn't have to. And we've seen this. We've seen this in police violence cases, in sexual misconduct scandals, in political corporations. The apology marks the end of scrutiny. And I think this is like really interesting because we can see this kind of idea of sacrificial accountability when it comes to the Epstein files and all that is horrible and satanic about Jeffrey Epstein. My cat's like bringing around his toy. He's stopped to eat now. Okay. Anyways, of how all of these like politicians, celebrities, academics that were all like involved with him and like posted up like doing like photo shoots and God knows what. They're like, oh, we didn't really know him like that. And like they're kind of trying to use him as like a sacrifice and a scapegoat. And I'm not saying that like obviously he facilitated everything, but it's also like you guys were very much so involved. And I'm very glad that the US government is being really stupid with the way that they're like redacting with like the black highlighter. That's insane to me. But like good for us. And also like I'm really happy that like the public isn't like accepting Jeffrey Epstein as like the sole individual that was like doing these horrible things. Like no, everyone saw, and it was like maybe not started by you, but definitely perpetuated. Anyways, now here's the final twist. Apologies are often used against marginalized groups. Once the state apologizes, resistance is then framed as ungrateful, radical, and unreasonable. You got your apology. What more do you want? Is kind of like the mentality. What more? I don't know. Maybe land, reparations, power, safety? Apologies without material change becomes a tool of silencing. A real apology, what a real apology would mean. Let's talk about it. A real apology would mean exactly that. Reparations, redistribution, structural dismantling, loss of power from those responsible. Which is exactly why we never see them. Because it's too much. We're asking for too much. We need to just be grateful. And this is like the insane narrative that governments perpetuate. And they think that like everyone just eats up these apologies. And I feel like that has been true for so long. But I'm glad that I feel that society is waking up a little bit and realizing that a political apology, a media apology, a corporate apology doesn't mean jack. And that's exactly what I'm going to encourage all of you guys to do in wrapping up this episode. When we hear an apology from X, Y, and Z, we need to ask what changed, who paid, who lost power, and who benefited. Because if the answer is nothing, which it usually is, then it wasn't an apology. It was a strategy used to manipulate us and to make us shut up. This has been this week's episode. Until next week, guys, stay curious, stay politically aware, and never confuse sorry for justice. Bye, guys.